All right, welcome back. Super excited to get into this next section. We are going to be talking about building a runway. And what I mean by that is basically addressing that gap between, your full-time freelance or salary job and, getting to the place where products, are able to, fully sustain your, income. So, essentially, one of the biggest things you can do to help this transition from hamster wheel to fully sustained residual income is to build a runway via platforms already built by someone else, right? We'll get into what I mean by that in a second. But some of the examples that I'm talking about, I mentioned earlier that for me, Film Supply was a huge part of my story because it allowed me to, bring in a couple $1,000s on a good month while I was still working as a full-time freelancer, taking client jobs. And that little bit of money, not only helped pay the bills some months, but it also allowed me to say no to jobs, at the time where I could, so that I could start really investing time into a longer sort of, a longer term solution, building my own store, building products for myself, all that kind of thing. So, for me, Film Supply was that sort of solution. For other guys, there's a lot of other sort of basically stock sites out there, whether it's ArtGrid or Creative Markets. For designers, there's a ton of fonts and assets that people have and can make a full, a great income just on Creative Market. I have a friend named Jen Wagner, and the only reason why I'm sharing this is because she, talks about it herself. She, designs custom fonts, and through her partnership with Creative Market and, essentially putting her fonts onto this stock site for other designers, she makes, $100,000 a year just through, Creative Market. Same for, Envato, that's Video Hive, Audio Jungle, probably some of these sites that you've heard about before. For musicians, there's MusicBed or Artlist. For photographers, there's Shutterstock, Pond5. There's a ton of websites, no matter what field you're in, where creatives can use this sort of crowdsourced marketplace to start building a runway of residual income. So the beauty of companies like this is that they focus on all the hosting, marketing, advertising, and payouts, and allow you to profit from the products themselves with no overhead or personal investment of money, right? So essentially, all you have to have is the asset itself, whether it's a photo or a stock footage clip or whatever. That's all you need. You're not spending time or money setting up, a website or, figuring out how to, which platforms to use to host all that stuff. All you're doing is you're doing the creative part and you're giving them these assets, right? These companies typically take 40 to 60% of the profits, but since they have a massive marketing budget and audience, you have a high chance of winning because of the sheer quantity of eyes coming to their site. So, another Shark Tank reference here, they say this a lot, that it's better to have 50% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. In other words, would you rather have, a small piece of a big, pool of income, or would you rather have, sort of 100% of a very small amount of income? And in the beginning, I think that it's better to have a percentage of a multi-million-dollar marketing, a multi-million-dollar company than having 100% and not making anything. In the long run, of course, the goal is to create, and that's what we're going to be talking about down the road. They say this on Shark Tank. Some of the investors talk about this, that it's often better to have 50% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. And what I mean by that is that, it's better to take 50% home, 50% of the profit from a larger pool of money, because these guys are spending thousands and thousands and thousands on marketing and bringing a bunch of people to your content that you can upload. It's better to take that 50% than to be greedy and take 100% of something that's really small in the beginning. So, obviously down the road, and we're going to be getting into this, the most sustainable thing is when you're taking higher profits, right? When you're taking 100% of the products that you've developed. That is obviously the goal. But in the beginning, it's better to have a percentage of a multi-million-dollar company than having 100% of nothing and not making any money, right? So again, I got my first taste of residual income when I signed on to be a contributor at filmsupply.com. I essentially just upload footage that I own the rights to, and I already had sitting on my hard drive. And I was able to start bringing in cash every month that helped become a really nice little vacation fund, and even ended up slowly becoming enough to cover my mortgage a lot of months, and then sort of giving me the time to work on something bigger, right? So even today, I still make about $20,000 a year on Film Supply alone. And when you think about it, that is a better return and a lower risk than a lot of like real estate investment properties. You can invest a lot of money and a lot of time into flipping a house and renting it out, and you're still going to be making $300 a month, $400 a month on a single family home. Whereas with this, I'm taking home, up to $24,000 a year with literally no, further investment besides that initial just upload. I'm not, managing. I'm not a landlord. I'm not even worrying about marketing or money. I literally just get checks in the mail, right? And then again, the most important part is that this bought me the time and allowed me to make the transition of investing more hours into long-term residual income plans. And this is a huge thing. It gave me some very initial insight into what things I brought to the table creatively that people were drawn to spend money on. So, for example, there was a night where, I had this old vintage TV from a music video that I've been working on. And I had my personal DSLR, and I, signed on to be with Film Supply. I didn't have a ton of content, but I thought, you know what? I look for vintage TV, footage enough to warrant some sort of investment into potentially seeing if this would be something that people would want to buy. I took that TV, I ran an extension cord in my backyard, and I just started playing around and capturing footage and uploaded it to Film Supply, right? And I'll show you what that looks like, right? So here is the footage. This is sort of like the front end of Film Supply that everyone sees. Literally you can see like that's my street, right? That is somewhere in my backyard. I just took this TV, no additional lights, had a tiny little tripod on my GH5, and I just shot some super basic footage, ton of different angles of this TV sitting out, in my backyard. So I uploaded that to Film Supply, and over the course of, 2017, 2018, whenever it was that I uploaded that, it made me, a few $1,000s, and continues to make me about the same year after year, even today, all from an investment of about 4 hours of free time, right? That is crazy. The return on time investment from that little shoot in my backyard is pretty unfathomable. Now, just a side note, I am not saying that you should get a vintage TV and go in your backyard and shoot exactly what I shot, because once something has been done enough, it's going to be counterproductive for you to try to imitate the same, results through the same method. So it's more about thinking through, what do you have at your disposal? What are things that people might be interested? What are things that you've been interested in, finding on, for projects you've been working on? And how are you going to take that and benefit from it, right? But this whole story really brings me to another really, really huge point, which is that all of this was possible because of another fundamental mindset shift. And that is the power of equity over cash payment. So essentially what I mean by that is there's a lot of times where as creatives we get frustrated by, a lower day rate or a budget that, isn't what we kind of really deserve for a project, right? Sometimes we want to work with an artist, or we want to work on a project and the budget is either close to nothing or nothing, right? And that can be a really frustrating experience. It can feel devaluing. But what I've learned is that it's actually more powerful to be able to negotiate in those moments for equity than it is to fight for, your day rate that you deserve or whatever it is. Because the equity in something that you can own and then take to, either Film Supply or whatever it is, or or to set up your own sort of products, whether that is some sort of stock asset or a digital product that you can create from that, it is so much more powerful and lucrative and profitable in the long run. As creatives, we're very used to the feeling of dealing with clients coming in with low budgets. While this can obviously be frustrating at times, it offers a unique opportunity to negotiate for ownership of the project's creative assets, which can actually be far more profitable in the long run than what the project would have paid you in cash. For example, I live in Nashville, right? And if anyone knows, there are a lot of, music videos happening here. That's kind of the bread and butter of the city. There's a ton of music in Nashville, just like in LA or New York. And living here, I've had a lot of independent artists reach out to me to direct music videos for them. But the budgets are often very, very small or sometimes non-existent. But instead of, being upset by this and letting it sort of frustrate me and get me down, I've learned how to use this opportunity to respectfully propose a win-win situation where I shoot and edit the music video for free in exchange for ownership of the footage, right? That footage often makes me far more than my day rate would have been in the long run. So, a disclaimer on this, you definitely have to know when and how to play this card in a way that is honoring to your relationship with the client. This is absolutely not something that you want to try to sneak in under the radar or talk about later. It's something to be upfront about. It's just something to be, upfront about how the footage is going to be used and how it's going to create a mutually beneficial situation. But it's extremely powerful for both parties so often because for me, I'm gonna make my day rate back in the long run. And for them, they get free content, right? And what artist or what, startup or nonprofit doesn't want free content? So, depending on the situation, this can be a card that is really, really mutually beneficial. And I've seen it do wonders for me in a lot of relationships. Bottom line, this is a bit of a shorter section, but it's extremely important that we take these concepts of building a runway early on, and I just want to encourage you, do not neglect the opportunities that the crowdsourced world, the crowdsourced marketplace has to offer you right now. You may have money hiding on your hard drive already, right? Whether it's through stock assets or, something that you could just go out and grab really quick or whatever. So start building your runway now and you'll have no excuse, when it comes to the fact that you'll have more time, more resources at your disposal to be able to invest in more passion projects and then these longer term sort of full ownership, products that we'll get into in just a minute.